What's up, Wall fans? Welcome to another exciting video feed for Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And this is episode 129. We're actually shooting for Thursday. Had a little scheduling conflict there, so here we are yet again on a Sunday with a fresh new Common Sense Sundays for you. All that being said, let's get right into it.
1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, Wall fans, Common Sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to another very exciting edition of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And this is episode 129. That's right, 129. 129. Still getting my legs underneath me a little bit, so please forgive any sound issues, all kinds of good stuff. We're going to talk about that kind of as we get into the opening here. And I'm actually before we get into the opening, I've been having some microphone issues. You might, if you've been a long-time listener, you might notice a little bit of extra distortion, or maybe you don't. I notice it, though. That's the problem. So we're trying out some new chords here and stuff. Might end up having to get a new microphone, but nonetheless, we persist. We continue through, and just forgive the slight audio issues if you're someone that notices those things. All right, before we get into the meat of the episode, we're going to kick things off with some social plugs. Don't forget you can keep up with us during episodes, before episodes, after episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be Facebook, facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's right, facebook.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. We also have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/go-tell-it-to-the-wall. You just kind of got to remember the /go-tell-it-to-the-wall. That's what's going to do it for you most times, except for my own personal Instagram account, which is @SoCalSean, and that, of course, also translates over to Threads. So if you're a Threads user, you can follow my personal account on Threads there @SoCalSean. We might end up throwing up a Go-Tell-It-to-the-Wall Threads account. We'll see how that goes. There's been no reason to do an Instagram, but maybe with Threads kind of taking off, we can do a little bit of that. And as I said, and of course, our website, your one-stop shop for anything and everything that is Go Tell It to the Wall, Common Sense Sundays, and now all the things that fall under that umbrella, including my own personal stuff, and that would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. And our Patreon, which I failed to mention last episode. If you're interested in supporting the podcast financially, the best way to do that is through Patreon, and you'll find that link directly on SeanO'RourkeLive.com. And for those of you that are existing patrons, we're going to have some changes, and it's not even on our end. It's a Patreon thing, and some changes that they have going on. Nothing crazy, but you'll get some notes as we update all that stuff in the coming weeks. I also want to have a quick mention. I know we do have a merch website. It's one of those print-to-order websites. It's fine. You know, we've had a few people order things, but I've, for a very long time, been thinking about doing some printed merch. I think the next thing we're going to do is probably some T-shirts, so keep an eye out for that, because we're going to do some Go Tell It to the Wall T-shirts. And maybe we'll put up a poll somewhere and see if we do the traditional logo, the Muppet-looking logo, whichever one of those, everyone would be more interested in getting, I guess. And as I said, still getting my legs underneath me. In fact, last episode I finished recording, and it was very much like episode 0. For those of you that have been listening for 9+ years, we started off with an episode 0, and it was kind of a baseline. Let's see how this goes. Recorded that, had no idea what to do with it. I had to call some friends and be like, what do I do with this? I've recorded an episode. What do I do with it? And in fact, last episode, once I finished, I kind of had to remind myself of all the different steps in the workflow to actually get this thing published. Fortunately, everything went out. We got the video feed up. We got the the RSS feed still working just fine. Shout out to John Castro, who was the official first listener. He's also he's a big fan of the show, but also a close personal friend. He texted me like 2 minutes after we uploaded to Podomatic, and he's like, "It's about time," And I said, I haven't even gotten the social posts up. So, but because he's a Podomatic user, he got notified right away. So we are still getting legs underneath us, hitting the ground running as usual. It's we were doing it for so long that it was just all second nature. I didn't even think about what I was doing, and now after taking like a year and a half off, it's just okay. I got to remember all the different things. So it's, I don't want to call it a challenge. It's just been interesting, And even the hashtags. Hashtags are kind of a silly thing, but we use them. We have some important ones because that's how the podcast gets found. One of my favorite is hashtag we don't need rails, because this podcast is constantly off the rails. And thank you to everyone who got back in touch with us after that last episode. Got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of notes, a lot of all kinds of good stuff from our loyal listeners. So thank you to all of you out there for your continued support. All right, let's talk some social and digital trends. So I'm still getting my positioning right. It's funny. I was sitting here and I look at my monitor. I look really short in this, and I'm not an incredibly tall person, but I'm not a short person. And I went, oh yeah, I got to raise my chair. So it's these little things that I just don't think about that constantly are happening. All right, social digital trends. I want to talk about Ring cameras. We're gonna have a few Super Bowl things throughout this episode. Most of it pertaining to like entertainment, social trends, that kind of stuff. But one thing I want to mention here in the social digital trend section of the episode is the Ring camera commercial that aired during the Super Bowl. It's Ring camera and this thing called that they were calling Flock, Flock, like a flock of seagulls. You know, see, I went flock of seagulls there. You can tell my age because I didn't go like flock of ducks. We got flocks of parrots here where I live. No, flock of seagulls. So anyway, they had this ad. If you're not familiar with it, apologies if you are. But it was basically like a find your pet thing. And they were going to tap into everyone's Ring cameras if you had a lost pet or dog. It's probably specifically a dog. Cats are menaces, so you're not going to catch a cat on a camera very much. Although it happens here in my house. I've got a camera in the backyard, and once in a while I'm like, you little stray cat, what are you doing? They like to go messing around in the backyard there. So the reason I put it here is there was some social media backlash, because everyone was like, this is an invasion of privacy. This is ridiculous. And this is we've had these before many times, a positive outcome from social media. There was such an outcry from people saying, this is not something that we want. This is an invasion of privacy. And sure enough, a few days later, Ring backed off of it, and they're not going to do that anymore. So shout out to everyone who actually spoke out. That's a time where you can use your platform for something good, and it worked. This does happen at times. And really, this could have also gone in common sense, because it's like, do I really want someone I don't have Ring cameras. We are a Google household, for those of you that are new listeners to the podcast. So I've got all the Nest cams, not Ring. But I wouldn't want someone tapping into my cameras. Now, granted, I don't have a camera in the bedrooms in this house. They're all outside. So it's really stuff that you could see if you're standing outside in my backyard, or even if you're not even in my front yard, but you're looking into it like from the street. But I still don't want people tapping into my cameras. Well, like who? For anyone at Ring to think that was a good idea is just kind of astounding to me. So congrats everyone for bringing that up and getting change made, because it's not something we need. We already live in such a surveillance state. We don't need more of it. We just don't. All right, one other thing I want to talk about is Congresswoman Angela Vergara. She is of Colombian descent. She's a U.S. Congresswoman. I didn't even know who this was until this recently came up, because she has been posting on social platforms. Oh, and I should preface that with, you guessed it, she is an Orange Menace supporter. She's a Republican and has been a longtime Orange Menace supporter. Well, what happened was, because she's of Colombian descent, her 18-year-old son was detained by ICE. 18-year-old son detained by ICE. And now suddenly she cares. She was a big supporter of the ICE crackdowns and these they're calling immigration, I finger quote that, crackdowns, where they're really just going into cities and harassing people. I've experienced it firsthand here. Obviously not me. I am very white. I'm tall and white, and I have purple hair. They tend not to mess with me, you know. But I have neighbors who are people of color, and they have often been harassed. And this is Los Angeles. So just imagine certain other cities where, you know, you don't have people pushing back as much. And that's nothing against other cities, but here's the thing. In my neighborhood, we got two rival gangs, and they don't bother me. They don't bother other people. They keep to themselves. But if ICE comes in, that's not going to be a good ending for them. See, I got to look at her name, Angela Vergara. I got to say, you reap what you sow. You get what you pay for. You got to deal with what you voted for and supported. I've got no sympathy whatsoever. Now, I don't know about her son, so maybe I should have some sympathy for her son. Maybe he doesn't agree with it. But the fact that then now, because it's affecting her, she takes to social media to talk about how her son should be released from ICE custody. There's a little saying. It's with an F, an A, another F, and an O. It's called fuck around and find out, and she found out. A little bit of finding out there. The other thing I really love on social platforms right now, because it's amazing. Apparently, a lot of ICE workers. Do we call them workers? I don't, because I don't want to call them officers. These are not trained. It's an embarrassment to federal officers and police force and everything else. I mean, maybe sheriff's a little closer to that. If you've lived in a town with corrupt sheriff departments, you might know what I'm talking about. But they have also been taking to social media to point out that they have not been getting paid. So you see, we've seen these commercials. It's like a $50,000 sign-on bonus, your student loans paid off, and a competitive salary. I'm sure I've seen numbers of some kind, and it was like, Jesus Christ, you're paying these people a lot of money to go into cities and harass people. Well, it turns out they're not actually getting paid. They have not received paychecks. They haven't received bonuses, and it's been flooding social media because they're pointing out, hey, we're out here carrying out a fascist propaganda, and we're not getting paid for it. Once again, this falls into that FAFO. You fucked around, you found out. Now, you've shown the world how terrible of a human being you are, and you're not even being paid for it. No sympathy whatsoever. None. I got no sympathy whatsoever. All right, let's move along to some mental health. I want to talk about this one because it's actually had been affecting me. It's something I've dealt with my entire life, but has been affecting me lately, and that is the correlation between mental health and physical health. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but I believe it's important to have these reminders because you kind of have to recognize the differences sometimes. Now, for those of you that don't deal with these things, this is also important for you to know because there's, like I always say, there's a good chance there's somebody in your life, in your family, in your close circle of friends that does deal with a potentially debilitating mental illness. So when I talk mental health in correlation with physical health, mental health and the challenges that go along with mental illness can have an adverse effect on your physical health. And again, for those of you not familiar, a lot of times this manifests as panic attacks. That's the number one thing you hear about, panic attacks. You know, and we've seen it portrayed in media forever. You know, even growing up in the 80s, you'd watch a movie or TV show and someone's hyperventilating and they give them a paper bag. Let's breathe into this. Don't do that to people. That is not something they need. And it's going to vary depending on every person. Now, for me, panic attacks very much manifest in loss of breath. And these symptoms can mirror things like a heart attack, an asthma attack. I don't deal with a crazy amount of reactive asthma, which doesn't affect me as much as my wife, who has asthma. She has to have an inhaler and whatnot. And it can manifest in those ways. And it reminds me, it's happened to me so many times. And in my younger days, I'm talking my late teens, early 20s, I was not as familiar with those things. And it reminds me of a story. My mother, I used to, when I was a DJ, I was driving around constantly, all around Southern California, all the way up to, Ventura, Oxnard, all the way out to Palm Springs, down to San Diego, from Orange County and Los Angeles, of course. I lived in Long Beach at the time. And I was driving out to a gig, probably a school, and I'm driving, and suddenly I had a sharp pain in my chest, and I got a little short of breath. So I literally pulled off the highway, and I went, oh my God, I think I'm having a heart attack, and I'm fairly healthy individual. I was a smoker at the time, so not everything, but I'm, fairly healthy individual, active, and not overweight or anything like that. So it didn't make any sense. And so what I did, I called my mom, and this is back in the day, not smartphones, so you can pick up the dial a little bit. We actually had keypads back then. I'm sure I was on a flip phone at that time. And it was the craziest thing. My mother said to me, she's like, you know what, just take a breath. And she goes, smoke a cigarette and then see if that helps. And I'm going, Ma, what do you mean? I got tightness in my chest. What do you mean smoke a cigarette? She said, you're overstressed right now. You're overworked, and you just need to find a way to move past that. And sure enough, I did. And it took a little while. But that's just one example of recognizing when your physical health when your mental health is affecting your physical health, which can happen quite often. I've talked about it before. Not only panic attacks, but mine also manifests in a complete shutdown. And this is something, fortunately, my wife years ago came to recognize. My body will just shut down. And it's not like shut down like I can't breathe or anything. It's just my body does not want to move. And if it gets too intense, all I can do is just lay down. It's just lay down. And so recognize these things. Whether you're someone who deals with it, whether you know somebody who deals with a mental illness, mental health issues, these are important things. Because the other thing is, You don't, and don't get me wrong, it's always best to go to the hospital. I have a friend who's very young, and a few months ago actually had a stroke. Didn't know it was happening, and had gone to like an eye doctor because it was a sight problem at first, and sure enough. So don't get me wrong, it's always best to be cautious in that respect. But it's also learning your body and the way that you react to certain situations, to certain mental health episodes, mental illness factors, whatever that may be. Because once you recognize that, it's easier to kind of get around it and say, okay, I'm having one of those moments. And that's why mental health is so important. Medication is so important. Because medication can help mitigate those things. And that's when the physical health goes hand in hand with the mental health. So keep those things keep that in mind, because it will happen. And you may see someone, and again, if someone needs to go to the hospital, mental health aside, there's a whole campaign of recognizing the signs of stroke, recognizing the signs of heart attack. We learn these things. A lot of people have taken CPR classes. You learn how to help someone in an emergency situation. But you also don't want to break someone's ribs because you're giving chest compressions because they're having a panic attack. So it's a fine line, but it's all learning your own body, people around you's body. Like I said, my wife very much recognizes when certain things are happening to me because of my mental illness. And it's important to have those things. All right, moving along, I want to talk about some positive news. Now, I'm going to talk more in depth once we get to entertainment news. But this one was a big one for me. I was out at a show last night, which, as you know, if you've been a long-time listener, this is a regular occurrence. I probably should have mentioned that show on the last episode, for those of you that are also in the scene and kind of run into me around places. And this one was at, I'll get into the details of it, but there was 4 or 5 bands playing. One of them I know real well. They're good friends. I try to catch them whenever they're playing here in Southern California. They're from Las Vegas, so I see them as much as I can. But they had a few younger bands. Younger is in like, I'm looking at one of these bands. I'm like, you are 14, and I'm sure they weren't 14. They were lovely people. Talked to them afterward. But multiple of these younger bands, young enough to be my children, you could say. So the next generation, standing on stage and standing up for their beliefs, speaking out against ICE, speaking out against the Orange Menace, using common sense in the scene, which really, if you follow the scene at all, you've noticed we've lost a little bit of that. So I remember I turned to my buddy as we're watching one of these bands, and I just went, the youth are all right. Let's move this along. Let's let this generation take over, because as much as I think I do a decent job of talking common sense and coming in here and yelling at a wall every week, they're all right. And they're going to bring us back in the right direction. And that's such a positive thing. So I encourage you out there, really with anything, but especially with the youth. If you see that, call it out in a positive way. Thank them. Because, 20, 30 years from now, when we're all getting older and heading to retirement homes and everything else, they're the ones going to be taking care of us. They're going to be the ones ruling the world. So we need more and more of that. And I just got a big good on you to those bands. I'm going to talk about them as we get into the entertainment news here. But for now, that's just going to be where we're at with it. I will say my wife is calling me right now. We're going to go ahead and answer this on there. Hi, hon.
Hey, baby, how you feeling?
I'm literally recording an episode right now. So
Sorry.
I don't know how much everyone's going to hear you, but I figured I'd answer it. It's okay.
All right. Making sure you're okay. I love you.
I love you too. I am okay. Are you going to the Galentine's event now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll be done well before you get home. Call me or text me if you need anything. I'm going to be in here probably another 30 minutes or so.
All right. Love you.
Love you. Bye. Oh, there you go. So my wife, we're going to get into that in parenting. My wife is out. Usually she's home. So we might have some extra dog barking because the dog likes to bark at every little thing. And sure enough, she's not here to quiet him down. But there you go. She gets a little cameo on the podcast. Not the first time she's been on the podcast, but that was quite amusing. I silenced my phone and everything. I do all these things, but, For those of you that are in relationships or married or have kids, you got to answer. And I should have known that was nothing. She was actually, and I will say, she was checking on me because I was having a rough afternoon. I didn't know if I was going to get in here, and just exhaustion just hit me. It's like I was talking about in mental health, and I probably could have slept like 12 hours today. But you got to persist and got to move on. So anyway, the youth are all right. I think so. I think we're in good hands here. All right, moving along to some parenting. See, perfect segue. I should have realized we were moving into parenting as my wife called, who's in the car with my daughter right now, heading out to a Galentine's party event with some friends of ours. So, no boys allowed. I don't know, there's probably boys allowed. I probably could have tagged along, but I got stuff to do here in the studio and around the house. And speaking of which, it is Girl Scout season. That's actually where they were leaving. So you probably go to the grocery store this time of year, or Trader Joe's, wherever you're going. You see a table set up, and there's a couple Girl Scouts out there slanging the cookies. Oh, it's Girl Scout season. So many boxes, and I dread this every year, and I don't mind it, but once the cookies get delivered, they all come to my house. I've got to find places to put them. I'm trying to rearrange my living room like for the past month or so, and then right as I'm getting to a good point of rearranging it, the cookies get delivered. Boxes upon boxes of cookies. And then it's also a challenge because I just have this endless supply of cookies. Last year I might have grabbed a box of cookies. That was earmarked for someone else. Luckily, it was also a friend of mine. So I said, that's all right. Laura can forgive me for that. But not only do you have all these cookie boxes around the house, they really work their asses off. You see them out at these and smiling and everything. So much work goes into this. The organizing of these what's called cookie booths. My wife and daughter are going to be out at cookie booths every weekend until the end of cookie season. I think we got like a few weeks left of this, and they've already been doing it for a couple weeks. And just the amount of work that these young ladies put into cookie season is just absolutely astounding to me. And on another note, if you do need cookies, hit me up on facebook.com/GoTellUsTheWall. So I got the hookup for the cookies, man. I got you. Although I am still mad at Girl Scouts of America, whatever the overarching. We got Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles. That's what my daughter's in. But I think it's Girl Scouts America. They got rid of the s'mores cookie. They brought in something else that just was not appetizing. I was like, no, bring back the s'mores cookie for Pete's sake. So anyway, all the Girl Scout stuff. Valentine's Day. So my wife and I really don't celebrate Valentine's Day much. Most people I know don't. It's one of those things. And I always say, especially if you go out to dinner and you have like this set menu and you're overpaying for food that's just subpar and you're dealing with crowds and everything else. I always say I'd rather go to 20 nice dinners throughout the year than do Valentine's Day. So, but then of course, when you have kids, when they get to a certain age, you have to organize Valentine's for their class. That's what they do. And this year, Valentine's Day fell on a Saturday. As mentioned, I was out at a show yesterday. Valentine's night was not a thing. In fact, my wife and my daughter spent it with our friend and her son because her husband's actually out of town right now. So they made some heart-shaped pizzas last night. That's how they celebrated Valentine's Day. But as I said, you got to prepare them for school stuff. And every year, we try to find something that is not completely candy related because good Lord, I mean, she came walking out of school yesterday like multiple bags just filled with candy, and I'm like, I still got Christmas candy in my house, and now I got all this Valentine's candy. And she's eating herself sick on candy and chocolate and everything Friday and yesterday. So what we do is we try to get other things, and we've done like pet rocks in the past, certain other things we've done, And this year, my wife, thank God she looks into these things. We found these keychains. Or like bag charms or keychains. Bag charms seem to be the thing nowadays. All these kids. My kid's got like 15 things hanging off her backpack. I'm like, what is all this? It's all these bag charms. These bag charms or keychains. They're capybara, Valentine's Day themed. If you don't know what a capybara is, Google it while you're listening to this because capybara is one of the coolest animals out right now, and they're so popular. So she gave those out instead. So a little break in the sugar and the candy, I guess, which can be a good thing because you get so much candy. It's nice to have something else. And I will say, the long-standing tradition, and I got a kick out of this. Maybe you won't. Every year since my daughter was born, and in fact, her first Valentine's Day, we were talking about this the other day. She was only a few months old, and she got a bear bigger than her. The bear wasn't that big. She was just still very small. So this, I try every year to find a stuffy. Oh my gosh, my daughter's room is just full of stuffies. Everyone buys her stuffies. She spends her own money, and if you don't know the term stuffed animals, plush. It's funny. I moved from calling them plush because that is actually the professional term, for lack of a better word, but that's what you call them when you're working with like promotions and giveaways, and it's all plush. If you talk to a retail person, they're plush. I worked for Disney for a long time. DCP, Disney Consumer Products, they're called plush. But now we call them stuffies because I got a kid at home. So of course I had to find her a stuffy this year. I'm like, what are we gonna do? And I decided because for those of you that used to listen, our dog, he's a little son of a bitch, but he's the cutest thing ever. And he's named Falcor because he looks like Falcor, for those of you that have seen Neverending Story. My daughter still hasn't seen it. I saw it when I was younger than her, and I'm still, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm still something to this day, because we all know the horse scene. I mean, I've watched it as an adult, but sometimes I got to walk out of the room for the horse scene. So I found a stuffed Falcor, a stuffy Falcor. Got that thing for her. And she was real excited. And I gave it to her yesterday on Valentine's Day. And sure enough, my dog, he's sitting on one end of the couch, and I'm sitting on one end, and I'm looking at the thing. I had it sitting on my lap. And I look to my left, and he's staring it down. And he's looking at it, and then he makes eye contact with me, and I'm like, oh, boy. He comes jumping over on me. And he didn't attack the stuffy. But he was like, no, that doesn't sit on your lap. I do. It was the funniest thing ever. My wife's sitting there, and she goes, oh, my God. He's a little jealous of that thing. He doesn't hate it. He hasn't ripped it up or anything. He likes to rip up his own toys, but he's very good about not grabbing my kids' toys. So that's the Valentine's Day tradition here in the O'Rourke household. I usually get my wife something, but we didn't this year. Nothing. It's Valentine's Day. It's so quick after Christmas. Like, I go a little nuts for my wife for Christmas because she doesn't like to buy herself things as much as she should. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get you all the things you've been mentioning for months that you didn't want to buy for yourself. So when Valentine's Day rolls around, I'm like, here is a bouquet of flowers. Not going to go crazy. We're not doing jewelry and stuff. That's what Christmas and birthdays and Mother's Day is for. All right, one more thing I want to talk about here in parenting. This was from months ago. So my child, I mentioned on the last episode, my child is very much into dance right now. She takes multiple dance classes, ballet being her number one. We also try to get her active, playing sports and stuff. The rec center here in my neighborhood, they offer all kinds of sports. We tried basketball. We tried volleyball. She did not like volleyball. She enjoyed basketball. Turns out she enjoys soccer. And she, she's young. She was 8 when she was playing soccer back in the fall. And but really enjoyed it. Just loved running around. She's like, I got cleats and shin guards and stuff, and I was taking her every week out to practices, and they'd have practice and then a game. It was an all girls league. It's something. It's like Girls Run LA. It's something like that. Very cute. Well, sure enough, the last practice and game day happened to fall on my birthday. My wife is out of town, and so it's just me and the kiddo. So we go to soccer, and I get this text message from the coach. There's a group text with all the parents, and she said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing parents versus daughters. It's all girls, soccer league. So if you want to participate, wear some comfortable shoes." And it's funny because I'm putting on my running shoes. I don't have cleats. I haven't had cleats since freshman year of high school when I, limped my way through a season of freshman football and realized I don't need a bunch of concussions. So I'm putting on my running shoes, and my daughter, she looks at me. She goes, "What are you wearing those shoes for?" She's used to seeing me in Vans, unless I'm specifically going out for a run. I said, I'm just going to throw these on. We get there, and the coach, they do a little practicing. The coach says to the girls, and I could see their faces. You can tell other parents didn't tell them either. She comes running back. She's like, "Are you going to play against us? Are you going to play against us?" I said, "Yep." That's why I got, comfortable. I got like sweatpants on instead of jeans, and I got running shoes. I said, "Yeah, we're going to do this." Well, here's the thing. Back in November here in Los Angeles, it rained like crazy for like a week straight. So the field was playable, but very slippery. So we get a few parents out there. Fortunately, one of the parents, it cracked me up. I think she had mentioned she played like college soccer, but she's out there in heels, not like high heel stilettos, but like little heeled boots, still outrunning all the other parents. And I'm doing my best to just not slip. And I made the mistake, and it was essentially like 15 girls converging on a parent as they got the ball, so you had to kind of pass it out. And it hit a point where the coach decided I'm sure she played like college soccer or something. And I decided I'm going to try to, you're kind of playing, but you're not slide tackling kids. But I would try to keep up with her. And oh man, the next day my back was killing me. But the one thing, Wall fans, that I got to confess, is I ended up with the ball at one point. And I look across the field, and there's another parent. And there's no kids in the way. None. So I go to kick it, and I don't know what I'm doing. I never really played much soccer. I was a basketball player. We use our hands. I kick a soccer ball. I don't know where that thing's going. But I did kick it pretty straight. But there's a girl on the team, runs across the field, right in front of it. And great again, this is not me like winging it as hard as I can, but it wasn't soft either. It was just 2 feet in the air as it's going to this parent. Bam! Smacks her right in the stomach, and my heart dropped. I said, What the fuck am I doing out here? And then she runs off. I think her dad was also playing with one of the parents. I can't remember. He goes off, and I run off. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was not trying to kick it at you, and I think she's upset more because she's embarrassed. And the dad turns to me and goes, it's part of the game. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not trying to kick it at kids. And she was like, no, it's okay. But I felt so bad for the rest of that game. I was like, I'm only kicking this like 2 feet away from me. So that's what happens. If you get invited to play, wait until the kids are teenagers before you start winging kicks around there. And like I said, I don't play soccer. I never played soccer. I played youth soccer when I was probably like 7. And literally my one job, I played defender. And my one job, the coach would be like, if that soccer ball comes near you, you just kick it as hard as you can the other way. So I said, all right. That's the extent of my soccer ability. I also just realized, speaking of workflow, I did not set up the GoPro. Usually I've got a GoPro here taking some photos. Yeah, completely forgot that. It's funny, because I'm used to seeing a little flash inside. It's like time-lapse photos. No, nothing. So you're not getting any of that. Sorry, patrons. Usually that's where we throw one. Everyone gets an exclusive still photo. It's usually me making a dumb face or yelling into the microphone, whatever it might be. All right, moving along with some common sense. Sports betting apps. Good Lord. I think I talked about this previously, where there was a time in my lifetime where, you had to be in Vegas or maybe on a riverboat and on a cruise ship before it was legal to gamble. And then in my teenhood is when the and forgive me for using the term, they call it the Indian Gaming Commission. I know that is an incorrect term, but that's what it's called. And so the casinos that have popped up, and you had some of that. And I want to say a couple years ago, because they were trying to legalize gambling to an extent. And I used to say, I'd love to sit on my couch and bet $2, on this game that I'm watching. Well, just since then, it has just infiltrated sports betting immensely. If maybe you're not a sports watcher, but if you watch ESPN or you watch an NFL game during the season, you're going to get commercials for like 10 different sports betting apps. And here's the thing, it's legal, and I'm here for it, but it's gotten so out of hand that it's just me personally completely turned off from any kind of sports betting. I'm like, no, I'm just not doing it. Because not only is it infiltrated everything, it's too easy, but you can bet on the silliest things. Like we used to joke about what they call prop bets, and you could, what's the color of the Gatorade that's going to get dumped on the coach after the Super Bowl? It's funny and stuff. Now it's gotten so out of hand. And the other side of the coin is now we have athletes who are abusing those privileges. We have massive federal cases going on right now And in fact, I think an athlete was just convicted recently because they call it shaving points. Maybe they're taking themselves out of a game, whatever it might be. So whatever kind of integrity there was when it came to sports betting is really just completely out the window. And there's just way too many. And these players are getting caught. So if common sense says, if I see that players, athletes, are manipulating this, why the hell am I going to put money on something that I have no control over, and other people are most likely manipulating in a way that is going to negatively affect you? So, and maybe your sport, that's fine. You want to bet on, do it all day. I was sitting next to a guy at a Super Bowl party, and he was like placing bets on an app during the game. It's like, oh, if this guy scores, I'm going to get, and very innocent. Like, I don't think he's betting his life savings or anything. So there's nothing wrong with that. But just, I encourage you to proceed with caution when it comes to any of that kind of stuff. Speaking of Super Bowl, let's talk about the Super Bowl halftime. I know, so controversial. Like, amazingly controversial for no reason. my favorite was everyone, can we have an American citizen for the Super Bowl halftime show? Hate to break it to you, Bad Bunny, American citizen. You too, not American citizen. I mean, come on. And they had a very popular halftime show. We've had a bunch of people that were not American citizens and no complaints, but they were complaining because of the atmosphere, the environment that we live in this country, where they're going to complain about anyone that's not white. And that's what it was. And then it was, oh, he's going to sing only in Spanish. Yeah? So? You don't have to understand all of the lyrics to appreciate a song. Now, me, as a ska punk and a pop punk fan, sometimes they're speaking English. You still can't understand the words. We've all heard Bob Dylan. What the hell is he talking about? You don't understand what he's saying. Come on. I can understand what Bad Bunny's saying. I didn't know what it was. You could hear him. And the other thing that gets me on this is, like I said, the difference is not white people. So what happened was, now we literally have politicians who are calling for, excuse me, I got to get some water here, calling for investigations into the halftime show and how it was inappropriate. And for those of you that maybe didn't watch it, there were some dancers out there, and I don't even think it was like twerking, finger quote twerking, like the kids do these days. But there's some booty shaking, especially when it comes to Latin music. You're gonna get some booty shaking, man. I mean, who doesn't love that? And there's people grinding on TV, and there was actually, I believe, a same-sex couple standing next to a truck. You would think they were like having sex on television, the way people were reacting to this. No, it's some booty shaking. You're just mad because it's not white people. And the crazy thing is, there was a Levi's Super Bowl commercial. Levi's. We're all familiar with Levi's. That's all. I wear Levi's every day. Levi's jeans. I got Levi's pants. And this commercial featured nothing but butts. It was butts in Levi's pants, dancing, shaking butts. In fact, the last shot is like, good Lord, that's a lot of butt there. Is anyone complaining about that? No. Crickets. Why? Because it's Levi's. They just want to complain about Bad Bunny. And for the love of God, politicians, find something fucking better to do. This country is in disarray. We have so many other problems. Why would you take your time to complain about some booty shaking? I mean, come on. And then I think about previous years. We had Jennifer Lopez and Shakira, which, not my type of music, but damn, that was a great halftime show. You're gonna tell and I had to think about it. I'm like, I don't remember a lot of it, but there had to be some booty shaking there. No complaints. And those weren't even white people. But because of the environment we are in this country right now, politicians have nothing better to do but complain about a halftime show. Halftime show. I think this is also a good time to remind people that the Super Bowl is actually pay to play. Pay to play. For those of you not familiar with pay to play, a lot of clubs and venues and stuff, they will say, hey, you got to pay us to come in here and play. And maybe you get a piece of ticket sales, but you're paying. That's the Super Bowl. The artist that performs in the Super Bowl halftime show, they pay the NFL money. Now, you can think of it as an investment. I'm sure Bad Bunny had a bunch of downloads and album purchases and everything right after the Super Bowl. But again, common sense to be thinking about that. And then, of course, picking things to be upset about. This I want to talk about because this one just gives me a headache. And I think everyone should speak out. You should speak out against things that are wrong, things that you don't like to an extent. You know, not if you just don't like brown people, maybe shut your fucking mouth. You know, but when it comes to certain things, yes, you know, we should be vocal about those things. What frustrates me is the selective outrage that a lot of people have. So what they will do is they will just come at something because they disagree with it, and it's a good reason to disagree with it. But then on the other side, they just ignore it from someone else. And a great example of this is how a couple years ago, or not even a couple years ago, excuse me, Wall fans, but when the Orange Menace was elected again and pushed no more DEI, they said we're not doing that anymore. And so some companies they complied and they ended their DEI programs. One of those was Target. So everyone decided they were going to boycott Target, and that everyone has a right to boycott Target. Whether you agree or disagree, whatever it is, you have that right. What frustrates me is wall fans, common sensors. If you're not familiar with the first company to toe the line once the Orange Menace came out and said that, do you know which company that is? The very first, like that fucking day, was the Walt Disney Company. They've taken no hit to their stock. You go to the parks, you're shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of sweaty people. No hit whatsoever. But because people selectively decided they were going to go after Target, Target takes a hit. So it's fine, go after Target. But don't say, I can't believe Target ended DEI and then go to Disneyland. Go see Marvel movies. Give me a break. And there's so many things like this. And we've hit a point where really, if you were to just go after everything because they are a Trump supporter, a Orange Menace supporter, you can't do anything. You can't. For those of you not aware, the Los Angeles Dodgers, two-time world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, the owner of the Dodgers owns facilities where people taken into custody by ICE are housed. But we don't hear much about that. We don't. But if somebody gives a $500 donation years ago to the Orange Menace, well, they're tarred and feathered. So again, speak up when you want to, but educate yourself. I've hit a point where I'm going to do everything I can. I come in here, yell at a wall, I talk to people, whatever it might be. I told you, the youth are all right. We're in better hands with them. But if I was to nitpick all those things, I would just sit in my house and stare at a wall. You like sports teams? Guarantee there's someone in the ownership group that is an Orange Menace supporter. Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, was good friends with the Orange Menace. That's why he ended DEI. So I encourage you to just educate yourself. Pick your battles, of course, but, you know, don't be blind to one thing while raging against the other thing. It doesn't work like that. All right, entertainment. Why do I have this in here? Oh, yeah, no, we're going to talk about the halftime show a little more. So Super Bowl Sunday. We got a few more topics here, and we're going to wrap it up for episode 129 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall. Super Bowl Sunday. Now, I was a little biased. I did have a dog in the fight. I am a Patriots fan, have been since I was a kid. My dad is from Boston. You know, and it was one of those pleasant things. For those of you not sports fans, nobody expected the Patriots to be in the Super Bowl. And sure enough, they ended up getting their butts kicked. You got a quarterback who's not even 23 years old. Can you imagine, you're 22, 23 years old, and you got these grown men running full speed and pounding you into the ground. It's rough, man. So they didn't do so well, but it is what it is. I still enjoyed the game. I will say the halftime show was fantastic, and there was a lot of nods to Los Angeles. And in fact, if you watched it and you noticed there was a taco stand, Via's Tacos, that is actually a Highland Park staple. It is pretty much walking distance from my house. In fact, it's I can see it from the field, the infamous field where I kicked a soccer ball and hit a young lady in the stomach. She's fine, like we said. But a lot of LA references there, which I really enjoyed. Not only that, but the references to all the countries. In fact, my wife sent me a meme. For those of you familiar with Animaniacs, and I don't know if it's an episode or an interstitial or something, one of the Animaniacs, like, just takes a deep breath and, like, goes through all the countries of the world. And it was like Bad Bunny at halftime show because he went through all the countries in North America and South America, the Americas. So that was really funny. It was a great nod to inclusivity and pointing out, like, America isn't just those assholes in the United States. America is much bigger and much more, even more diverse than the United States, because the U.S. is very diverse. So I thought that was fantastic. I will say, for those of you that might have caught on to the rumor, the false news that was going on, there's a scene in the halftime show where Bad Bunny hands his Grammy to a kid. It came out the next day that was the kid who was taken into custody by ICE, the 5-year-old. It actually was not. It was an actor from Los Angeles, apparently, a child actor. But I did love that because, it was clearly portraying a younger Bad Bunny. And there's always that saying, like, what would you tell your younger self? And that was a very positive thing of him saying to himself, one day you're going to hold one of these Grammys, And then, of course, the commercials. And I will say, it's so funny. I don't usually pay close attention to the commercials, but because the Patriots were playing in the Super Bowl, I'm sitting on the couch, actually right next to our on-air producer, Chris, who's our facts and information guy, who's also a Pats fan, and we're sitting there next to each other. So I didn't really leave the couch much, except to go to the bathroom. I wasn't even getting myself drinks, because I'd be like, hey, can you just toss me one of those? But the commercials definitely seemed subpar this year, and it wasn't just me. It was funny because, like, people over there, just for socializing and stuff, not really paying attention, they'd come over toward the TV and be like, have there been any good commercials yet? And it wasn't just me. There's people, like, sitting on the couch that were like, no, not really. Just kind of basic. And again, for me personally, that's not a big deal, but I remember years and years ago where you just had, now don't get me wrong, Puppy Baby Monkey, terrifying. Let's not go back to that. Google it if you're not familiar with it. So there's a fine line, but we can do a little better job. Maybe next year we'll have some better commercials. If you're spending $8 million, maybe put a little more effort into it. A little more effort. Now, granted, there was a couple funny ones. The Duncan one with Affleck and stuff, we were all laughing. So, but I feel like the ratio of funny, good commercials to just kind of meh commercials was speaking of meh, there was a meh commercial. Was just not as high this year. But whatever. And the last thing I want to mention, oh my gosh, shout out to my good friend who smokes the meats in the best way possible. And for those of you not watching the video feed, my eyes are closed right now because I'm just thinking about that succulent smoked brisket that I could not get enough of on Sunday. I ended up not really eating anything else. There's like cheese and other snacks and chips and dip and stuff. And I basically was just like, just give me the brisket. I don't need the other stuff. Just give me, and I had some like potato chips. Just give me the brisket. I'm not filling my stomach with anything else because nothing else compares to this stuff. But man, had some good food at that particular Super Bowl party. All right, so we got a TV show recommendation. Many of this, it's been around for a couple seasons. In fact, my wife and I just finished season 2 of this. We'd watched season 1, but with streaming services, I'm going to rage against this in the next few episodes because it's too, there's too much. There's absolutely too much streaming services. You can't even keep up with everything. But what we do in my house, and I feel like I always joke with my wife. I'm like, Netflix is grandfathered in. Like I have had Netflix since the only thing it did was they sent you DVDs. So I'm like, we keep the Netflix. And and I think I talked about commercials last episode. I'm like, I don't care if there's commercials. But we kind of rotate through the other ones when there's a deal and catch up on the shows and then cancel it so we're not paying like for an entire year or whatever it might be. So Apple TV, Shrinking is on Apple TV. There we go. We got alarms going off and everything. Shrinking's on Apple TV, and my wife and I had watched the first season, got rid of Apple TV. Shrinking came back, and we were like, okay, we'll wait because there's like Severance is on there, another great show. So we just caught up on season 2. Now season 3 is out on Apple TV. But my gosh, this show is so fantastic. I will say I think there are certain aspects from a mental illness standpoint that are accurate and possibly inaccurate, but not so inaccurate that I would be upset about it. It's just like, maybe that's not the best advice to talk to an actual doctor as opposed to an actor playing a doctor. But that aside, all the characters on this show, I find myself just laughing through entire episodes. Harrison Ford, who knew that he could pull off that kind of character and that kind of role? Oh my gosh, Jason, I'm having a blank now. I've been a fan of his since Freaks and Geeks, and just every character on that show is just raucously funny. So if you haven't checked out Shrinking and you have Apple TV Plus, check that one out. I can't get enough of it. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Like, nothing's ever going to beat Mr. Robot, but Shrinking is probably going to end up being in my top 5 shows of all time. I just have a feeling it will be. All right, and also bringing back the listening to segment. We used to do this a lot, and I'd bring up new stuff I'm listening to. Now, I've been listening to them for a while, but we did not have episodes for a while there. There's a band called Co-Defendants. I'm actually looking. Wait, no, I've got it. Where is it? Oh, no, it's down low. If you're watching the video feed, it's this orange and black sticker right here on the wall. They are a band that's on Fat Records. Absolutely fantastic. Very unique. And I will be honest, everyone's freaking out about Co-Defendants. I was like, I got to check them out. So I went and I bought and downloaded their first album, which is their only album so far. I think they have a new album coming out probably in the next few months. And I was kind of like, okay, this is cool, but not. Then I saw them live, and it was a little more like, okay. But after a few listens, I was like, holy crap. This is fantastic. And I don't even know how to describe it. Imagine melding hip-hop with punk rock, and hip-hop and punk rock had a baby, and it's the Co-Defendants. They're absolutely fantastic. So I highly recommend checking out the Co-Defendants. I've been listening to them constantly. In fact, driving home last night from the show, not the usual longer drives that I have from like deep Orange County, but I was coming from the valley back over to Highland Park, and it's a bit of a drive. I'm listening to Co-Defendants. So check them out, Co-Defendants. All right, and then lastly, before we wrap up episode 129 of Common Sense Sundays, I want to talk about 2 of the bands that I saw last night. Actually, 3 of them. So Winter Haven, this was years between seeing them. I saw them at Punk in the Park like years ago. I was trying to remember with my friend because we both saw them at the same time. And I couldn't remember if it was like 2022 or 2023. It was one of the Punk in the Parks. They played very early in the day, and I went, oh my gosh, this band's fantastic. In fact, I had my smaller camera there. Still have some photos of them that I should probably do some editing on and send their way. Young kids. This is, like I said, young bands playing. These kids are younger. So they were fantastic. But 2 bands that were brand new to me, one of them would be Bad Fatale, like Femme Fatale, Bad Fatale. I've got the sticker right there if you're watching the video feed. Bad Fatale, they were fantastic. They were one of the bands speaking out against ICE and everything else. Younger, not super young. I mean, they're probably in their 20s. And in fact, the guitarist, who I'm blanking on his name, I met him, talked to him for a while last night. In fact, that reminds me, he gave me some poppets, and we were apparently going to harass the sound guy. And so I stuck them in my pocket and totally forgot about them. And they're still in my jacket pocket right now, so I got to go take care of that for my dog, like it says on my jacket. Whoa, God. Anyway, he's also an artist and has some art that once I learned, I was like, I have totally seen that art when it comes to punk rock and paintbrushes. Fantastic organization. So he's been around a little while. They were just great. This is, I cannot stress enough going out to local shows. This was happening at Bar 10, which is within Corbin Bowl. It's a bowling alley, but they have a venue inside there that's separated by doors and everything else, and they've got a stage in there. And I swear, every time I go there, there's slight improvements. It's gotten better and better and better every time. And they're improving that space. But this is a band I'd never heard of. Never heard of. And that's the way to find these bands. And now I am a big fan. And in fact, the other one is the Dollheads. Now this was 2 young ladies and a guy, a young lady on bass, young lady on guitar, both of them singing, and a younger guy on drums. And this is when I said, "Oh my God, you're 14." This is the band I was referring to. But they were absolutely fantastic. I have yet to download either of these albums, but I will probably be doing that tonight. So highly recommend checking out the Dollheads as well as Bad Fatale and Winter Haven, who Winter Haven's been around for a few years. I believe Winter Haven is from Vegas, which makes sense because I was out there to see Mercy Music. They're good friends. I've seen them multiple times over the years, but multiple times this year. Anytime they come to town, I tend to catch Mercy Music. So if you're not familiar with them either, make sure you're checking out Mercy Music as well. Those are some of the bands that I saw last night. And if you're in the LA area, especially in the Valley, Bar 10 there at Corbin Bowl, fantastic place to catch a inexpensive show. I think the ticket was $15 last night. Shout out to Adam Mays Music and Adam Mays Music for putting on that show. So you get in there for very cheap. It's none of this Live Nation Ticketmaster shit. Because for those of you not familiar, not only do you overpay for tickets for Live Nation and Ticketmaster shows, but they buy up all these venues. So if you go to those venues, you end up spending $20 on a freaking beer. Well, you go to Bar 10, or one of my other favorites, Alex's down in Long Beach. They're not overcharging you for beer. In fact, I'm gonna go finish off some carne asada fries that I got last night. And this plate was just massive. I'm sharing it with friends, and I still end up coming home with like an entire meal's worth of carne asada fries. So make sure you're checking out Bar 10. Follow them on the socials so that you can be up to date. And again, I cannot stress enough, go to local shows. You can go see these big bands. That's fine. All that stuff. You're not going to find new bands so much at these large shows. Maybe at festivals because they got to fill that bill. But you know, you're going to see Green Day, Rancid, and the Interrupters. It's like, yeah, those are all big. We're all familiar with these bands. You're not finding new ones. So cannot recommend those bands enough. Definitely check them out when you get a chance to do so. All right, let's get a sip of this water real quick. It's funny, I didn't mention that last episode. This the Go Tell It to the Wall mug. This is the one and only of this kind. Sits on the shelf behind me here. That sucker was dusty after a year and a half of not using it. It gets used every week, so I wash it, and but it's never really dirty. Oh man, that was collecting some dust. All right, I think that's going to do it for us. Now, before we go, quick shameless plug of our social platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Make sure you subscribe to both those places. You're going to find all of our video feeds. YouTube has like kind of our additional interstitials that we do sometimes, album reviews, beer reviews. We have a whole parenting playlist that's specific to that. If you like to consume shorter clips, that would be the place to do it. My own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. You're going to find mostly like show content on there because it's photos. So we don't do a ton of Go Tell It's the Wall stuff. Maybe some studio photos be in there, whatever else. And also threads at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. You'll find me on there. That's my own personal one. And most importantly, just bookmark SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Has links to all those things I just mentioned. We are currently updating it, but either way, you're going to find links to those, as well as our Patreon campaign. If you want to support us financially, that is a great way to do so. So please make sure you're following us on all those episodes. We will be back soon. Like I said, we were going to record Thursday, and I had a previous engagement. I actually had to go to a dine out. Those of you that are parents probably know this. Schools will partner with restaurants and give a portion of the proceeds from that day or that night to the school. So that's, I had to go do that. I'm very active in my child's school, not only with like the booster club, but also with some of the other stuff. So I could not miss that, and that's why we pushed to Sunday. So we'll probably be back either next Sunday, maybe Thursday. Don't know. Make sure you're following those socials so you keep updated. Oh, I will also be out at the Escondite here in Los Angeles on Tuesday. We got 3 Chords, and the drummer from 3 Chords, his new band, which I am blanking on the name right now because it's a brand new band. They are playing on Tuesday at the Escondite, which is a great venue. It's this hidden gem because it's in the middle of Skid Row. And nothing against Skid Row, but you're kind of driving through there, you're like, where the hell am I? And then suddenly you're like, oh, here it is, and there's a parking lot, and it's gated, and all this other stuff. So if you're out and about in Los Angeles on Tuesday, need something to do, go check out the Escondite, and you might run into me there. I will throw some stickers at you. We're still loaded down with stickers. I've been trying to give them away. And it's funny because we weren't doing anything for like a year and a half, so I've had some of the venues where you'd see my stickers and I'd be like, oh, no, I gotta replace that one. It's getting a little beat up here. So yeah, definitely hit me up, and we'll throw some stickers your way. All right, that's gonna do it for us. I gotta go eat some dinner. I'm still exhausted. Man, getting old. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. So until next time, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers. Oh, no, this has been episode 129 of Common Sense Sundays with Go Tell It to the Wall, hosted by me, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke, and Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers. Until next time, remember, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and especially no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense.